come out of the corner of my eye off the side of the road in a culvert. And sure enough, there was 2 feet prints on either side of this hole.
We heard an absolute inhuman noise.
Let's see it.
I freaked. I panicked. When that thing come out from behind the tree, it scared the hell out of me, and I just said, I'm not going back down there.
You're listening to the Skunk Ape Files. And now, here are your hosts, Stacy Brown Jr. and Paul Sanson.
Hello and welcome to the Skunk Ape Files. I am Stacy Brown Jr.
And I'm Paul Sanson.
And he is Paul Sanson. And here we are on
happening?
Labor Day, recording our 5th episode. We've been at it a month so far, Paul. How do you feel?
I feel pretty good. I mean, as long as we keep making episodes, yeah, get some followers. We got we got all the social medias now. We got a Facebook group, so
Yeah. If we maybe were just a little bit more professional, things would be more streamlined and shit. But I don't think it would be something that I did if it was that way.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah,
I'm not a suit and tie kind of guy.
keep it light. I mean, we are looking for something that supposedly doesn't exist. So, how serious can you be?
I wear cut-off jeans, brother.
I don't think you do. I think you wear hipster skinny jeans.
I do wear skinny jeans, but I own cut-offs. Don't
Loafers
try.
also.
Cut-offs and the loafers. An amazing combo. So, you went and checked some stuff out yesterday, right?
Yeah, I rode over to the Withela Coochie and did some driving around back in there, the state forest.
What did you find? Did it look promising or?
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I mean, it's different than the other places we go. It's really hilly. I mean, there's like you're driving in the one road in, and it's like valley on either side of you. It's pretty weird. But
really?
Most of it has like yeah. There's some like deep drop-offs where you can just sit up there and look way out. It's pretty cool.
Huh, so is this almost like the Torreya area?
I don't know if it's that hilly, but I mean, I'm driving and I'm looking, I'm straight ahead and I look over to the right and I'm like, holy, what? There's like, it's like like an actual valley. It's weird.
Wow.
Yeah.
Are there any campsites around in there anywhere?
I'm sure there is. Yeah, we didn't really look. We were only there for hour and a half, and then did like a loop back through the Ocala forest, and but it was it's a pretty cool area. It's weird because there's like people living back in there. There's like you'll come up on a house every once in a while or so.
I wonder what those people are like. Is it like Wrong Turn?
Yeah.
Have you seen that movie?
Yeah. Kind of wish
Gene Pool's real shallow.
I don't have enough nerve to go up and ask them if they've seen or heard anything weird. But,
you just leave something on your gate. On their gate.
Get shot.
Maybe. Like, when we were trying to get the drone in the glades, I was asking the locals if I could rent a boat from them. They all had boats. And everybody said no. And they were like, why you got a drone out here? Only people I know that got a drone is the FBI. What are you doing out here? And I'm like, bro.
Do I look like the FBI?
Yeah, I said that. And he goes, that's exactly what they'd say. I feel like, yeah, well, you're probably right.
Got a point.
God. But yeah, you could get off in the boondocks out here, and the law wouldn't be to you. Help wouldn't be to you for probably 30, 45 minutes.
Yeah. There was a little sketchy part where, I mean, I had to go through sugar sand for a couple 100 yards, and I was just like, man, I'm not going to want to, if I get stuck, I have to dig in and drive for 50 feet and then dig again and drive for 50 feet. And it would have been like,
right.
Would have been a rough
Yeah,
day.
it gets like that in the Pine Barrens.
Yeah.
When I was up there, I just remember being terrified, like, oh my God, let's don't get stuck in this sugar sand.
Yeah.
You know, because it was really bad, and you are in the middle of nowhere, and those people are sketchy. Like, they've been living in there hundreds of years.
Yeah.
But anyways, so, yeah, man. I haven't done much since our last little outing. Done this podcast. Hadn't done nothing in the way of Skunk Ape.
Yeah.
But, we're doing this podcast, so I guess that's good enough, yeah?
Mm-hmm. It's too hot to do anything really even, you know.
It is hot. It is still miserable here, but, you know, this morning kind of felt like fall.
Yeah. It's
for a
been
little
raining
while.
here all day.
Oh, right.
Yeah, but, I mean, once it cools off, then, you know, get out in the woods more, and maybe they'll be more active, you know. We were out at,
Can you imagine actually being them right now? Being a skunk ape?
yeah, it's got
How hot it is?
to be rough.
Bad in them woods, bro. I guess if you're born into it, though, you wouldn't know no different. You wouldn't know what the AC is.
Yeah. No. I'm just wondering how they regulate their body temperature. Like, you know, we can sweat. Do they sweat?
I'm sure they do.
Maybe some stinky, drippy, matted, wet dog.
Yeah, they probably got you know, things of mud, pockets of mud, you know. That's probably why they also stay close to the creeks and the rivers.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I'm assuming these things do swim. I've heard enough encounters. I'm pretty sure these things swim quite a bit.
Yeah.
So, well, tonight's guest is Miss Marian Gant. I've known her through some other people. We met probably 6 years ago. She's a skunk ape researcher with the BFRO. She's very knowledgeable, and I wanted to bring her on. She was a little nervous about it, but I told her she's going to do fine, and so here's hoping to that. Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and bring her on. Miss Marian Gant, how you doing?
Fine. How you doing?
Hi, Marian.
Hi, Paul. Is it?
Yes.
Hi. How you doing?
I'm all right. How are you?
All right.
So you enjoying your Labor Day?
As much as I can.
Right.
A lot of labor in the Labor Day these times.
Ain't that something? There never seems to be a day off, no matter what people do.
Nope.
So, well, I wanted to ask you, what got you into the skunk ape, and you know when that was. So you got the floor. Just you know, go ahead and tell us what got it all started for you.
Well, growing up, I was one of those people that were interested, read everything in the library about Loch Ness and UFOs and Bigfoot and such. Didn't really have an opinion on if they were around or not until my son saw one. This was back in November, I think, 2006. We live next to a 7,000-acre conservation area, and he's around 10 years old. And one day, I guess him and his friends were out playing in the conservation area next to our property. There's a lot of wild tangerine trees and such. They're hanging on vines playing. And they saw something about 20, 25 yards north of them in the palmettos. These palmettos grow to about 4 or 5 feet high, and they saw something, a brown back, going back and forth in these palmettos. And the youngest of the three boys got nervous. He left. It left my son and the older boy. They continued playing, but they kept an eye on this thing because it looked like it was getting closer. And finally, it got to where they got nervous. They got nervous seeing this thing. It kept moving up towards them in the palmettos, and they decided to go home. So they start walking out, and they hear this crashing sound behind them, like something's coming at them, and it sounded like sticks breaking, like sticks are being thrown. So they started running a little bit faster. And as they were getting close to my property, my son happened to turn around, and he saw this huge thing standing by a tree. It had his arm around the tree, and it did this, the fake, when you act like you're going to get into somebody's face, you kind of jump forward a little bit, like you're going to get in their face, but you stay still. Did one of those things to him, and he turned around and kept running. This is when I came out to the outside, check on the boys, how they're doing, and I saw them running out of the woods, and they were excited, shaky, and my son said, "Hey, Mom, we saw something big." And I said, "Probably a bear or hog. Be careful." And he says, "No, Mom, no, it was big." And I said, "No, probably deer, bear, hog. Just be careful." I didn't want to scare him in the woods. We have animals all through there.
Right.
And we left it at that. So, I don't know, a month or so later, I'm upstairs working, and there's a travel show with Bigfoot on it downstairs. And my son comes to me and he says, "Do we have Bigfoot in Florida?" And I didn't want to scare him in the woods, out of the woods. So I said, "Well, people are seeing something up north, but no, we don't have anything like that in Florida." "Oh, okay," walks off. Not too long after that, we were sitting in front of his school waiting for it to open. He's in the car. And another friend of mine who lives along this same conservation area, half mile or so away from me, calls me on the phone and starts asking if anybody in my family had ever seen anything weird, because they hunt along there. And I said, "No, not exactly." And he said, "Well, we've seen Bigfoot." And I said, "What?" And he started telling me how they were taking a golf cart down a road near me, and they saw Bigfoot walk out of the woods around the trees and go back in again. He also told me about somebody else who I know, a little bit further down, came home and found their rabbit hutch destroyed. And as the son was tracking it into the woods, the dead rabbits, he saw Bigfoot there. So while he's telling me this, all of a sudden my son starts going, "I saw it, I saw it, I saw it." And
Right.
I turned around and looked at him and said, "What do you mean you saw it?" And he goes, "I saw the Bigfoot." I said, "When did you see a Bigfoot? You never told me." He goes, "Well, I didn't know it was a Bigfoot." He goes, "I told you I saw something big, but I didn't know what it was. And when I saw that Bigfoot show and they had one on there, you told me there was no such thing in Florida, but I saw it." So
Wow.
that's what started it. I asked him, first thing I asked him, what did it look like? What did its ears look like? He said you couldn't see the ears. There was hair covering it. Of the body, it was behind the tree, but he said what he could see, it was about 7 feet high and built like a bodybuilder, huge. And he even drew me a picture of the eyes. That's what really struck him, with the eyes. He said it looked pissed. It was bloodshot, pissed, mad at him, and that's one of the reasons they ran out of the woods.
So did he say it was more like orangutan? Because it's almost like we get two reports down here in Florida. We get the ones that look straight up like a Bigfoot, and then even though that Sarasota picture, I believe it's a hoax. I've heard it was a hoax. Or the Mayaca Skunk Ape picture, the one that looks like an orangutan. But we still get reports of the things looking like that. So did he say it leaned more towards either or?
He not like the orangutan, no, but he says it didn't look like a man. It looked like an ape man, but not like the orangutan. And what's funny is the picture that he drew, I showed it to someone who had seen one in Mayaca. And this is a father and a son that had, I guess they had stopped at the edge of a field to eat, and they got up and kept walking, and when they turned around, there was something in there right where they had been eating, and they looked at it through a scope, and they said it had the same face as what my son drew.
Oh, wow. Okay, so what happened next?
Well, what happened next, that's how I met Caroline Curtis of the BFRO.
Right.
She came out to investigate it. And that's part of the story, too, because you always think that young kids are making things up or such, but it was really strange when he agreed to take us out there to see it. He's walking ahead of us, and then at some point he stopped and picked up a stick. And I said, "What is that for, snakes?" And he said, "Yes." And then as we got closer to it, he dropped back and he took my hand. I mean, this is a 10, 11-year-old boy, and he's holding his mom's hand.
Right.
And I said, "Are you okay?" And he said, "Yeah." He goes, "There's the tree." And we said, "Well, show us the tree. He said, nope, he wasn't going to go near it. So Caroline and my sister Kathy had to go from tree to tree to find the exact one because he refused to go any further into the woods. And so that told me, too, that he had seen something. It wasn't a kid's imagination. It wasn't, bushes in the wind or anything like that. He saw something that scared him.
So what
there
did
is
his
that.
friend say about it?
His friend, I never got to talk to his friend. I never got to talk to his friend. His friend didn't really come around after that.
Wow.
Not too much.
Right on. Now, so you meet with Caroline Curtis, and I guess this is how you blossom into a researcher, correct?
Yeah, I mean, that's what caught my interest. My sister became a researcher before me for a couple of years because I'm not one who likes to go and talk to people. I love looking at the reports of the data, going out in the field, not talking to people so much. But eventually I did become a BFRO member, and I did talk to a few people until I just had to drop out of the group.
Right. So you're no longer involved with them?
No.
I gotcha.
No, I don't have time, and it just seems like these days reports are, back in 1970, I was walking through the woods, I heard a knock, I smelled a smell of Bigfoot.
Right,
I don't have time to talk to people that have that all day long.
Right. So, I guess what was I about to say? I draw a blank sometimes.
Well, we got visited another time.
Oh, okay,
there
you
was
did.
a second time it came back. Yeah, this was a couple of years later. And we had cleared out the area besides us. We were going to put a pond in. So a lot of the trees and bushes and stuff that were there the first time were gone. And we had a field, I don't know, maybe half size of a football field with tall reeds and such, averaged about 4 feet tall. And through these, there were paths where, the kids had taken four-wheelers and such. And between the reeds and the trees, it was swamp because it went back into the swamp. So there's a stretched area about 4 or 5 feet that was just mud from four-wheelers and such going through there.
Right.
And my son was practicing on his motorcycle. He liked to ride motocross, and he was just riding around the yard. And there's a hill on the edge of that field with reeds. And I was the only one home, and I'm watching him practice. And all of a sudden, he just zipped around, put his bike in the garage, and came into the house. And he was shaking, and he's pale, and he said, I think I saw it again. I said, what do you mean? And he goes, I think I saw it again. I said, wow. I said, will you go out there with me to look for it? And he said, yes. So we went out there, and we looked, and you couldn't see any tracks or anything. I mean, it was all mud. And we really didn't see any sign. He said that he was jumping over a hill, and as he's going over the hill, he saw something that stuck up about 2 to 3 feet above the reeds and ducked. And I said, where were you? And he showed me the hill. And the hill, there was a path that the four-wheelers had crushed down the reeds. And as I'm looking at this hill, I turn around thinking, okay, it was standing here, it ducked down, and behind us in the swamp are palmetto fronds spread all over the ground. And I'm like, wait a minute, what is this? So I go over there, and something had taken a handful of palmettos and just pulled the whole thing, bulb and all, out of the ground. And then it looked like it was peeling them off the main bulb and chewing the ends like you do sugar cane.
Right.
And dropped it on the ground. And I realized something had been there. They were standing there watching him, and I guess when they saw that he looked over towards it, it ducked down to the reeds, and it took off.
Have you ever heard anything like screams or howls or anything at night, or even during the day?
Not during the day. Now at night, my sister lives further along the same area, and she's heard screams. She said one night she sat out on her porch and she played the Sierra sounds. and she got a reply. She said it was very far away. It was too faint to record, but she definitely got a reply. Other than that, all I've heard are knocks.
So, this is right here at your house.
Yes. This is like 20 to, it's been a while, I want to say 20 to 40 yards from my house.
See, like, I'm wanting to buy and build a house, and I hate to say it, but that is like a qualification of where I
Yeah. Me
I
too.
want there to be like Bigfoot activity where I live, you know, because
Yeah.
especially as a researcher, how do you feel about that? Like, I mean, it would seem dumb almost to me to go somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's just unfortunately where I'm at, back then in 2006, 2008, there was activity. There's activity. I think it maybe during the hunting season it comes through here because you're not allowed to hunt.
Right.
But it seems like in the last few years it's quieted down and we've had a lot more development come up.
Oh, that's terrible.
Yeah, that's no good.
No, it's not. It's kind of sad because you can see every time I look on satellite to see, you know, I just see more and more development coming around. And now the road on the north boundary, they're getting ready to turn it into a 6-lane highway.
What area in the state are you?
Excuse me?
I mean, what area of the state are you in?
We're in Florida, Central Florida.
Okay, I'm in the land area between Daytona and Orlando. So I'm just curious how, like, what all's around there.
I think the only reason it came through here in the first place is it was probably, you know, if you ever look at the green areas, there's the green swamp, which we all know has activity.
Right.
But if you follow the green swamp down, it goes into the Hillsborough River area.
Yeah.
And that goes down, and then you get into the Cypress Creek. Cypress Creek comes up into the Cypress Creek Reserve, which is where I'm at. And then it kind of gets dead ends. I mean, there's places you could cut across to other pieces. Over to the east is I guess they call it Starkey now. It used to be called Serenova.
Yeah.
You know, and you can cut from there to down to Lake Tarpon or over to the Gulf. And I think they used to do that regularly. But now, between Trinity developing and cutting off Lake Tarpon by the Brooker Creek Reserve, I believe it's called, Starkey is developing on, they've got part of it they're leaving, but the other half, Bexley Ranch, I believe, is developing all that along the railway right-of-way. Like I told you, my area, they're putting a 6-lane highway in, and they're going to, the road to the east boundary, I believe, they're getting ready to widen that also and put in an industrial park.
So,
It's just they're getting pushed out.
well, let me ask you, because I've always wondered this. With the areas tightening them up, you know, they're going to get into smaller and smaller areas. Would that help the species out for, you know, instance, let's say breeding purposes? You know, maybe there's more of them in an area. What would you think about that?
I don't know. I don't think it's going to help them.
Right.
Because from everything I've read and I've learned, they wander. They don't stay in one area. They migrate around. And if they're cut off in an area where they're isolated, I don't see how that's going to help with breeding. Especially raising young. Do you want to raise young where you're penned in on 4 sides?
No. It may make our job easier.
Well,
I guess.
That's one thing that's great about Florida. You know, you go anywhere else, and you've got states on all around you. We've got water, so they're kind of penned in already.
Right.
But we still have a lot of area to cover, and most of the area is swamp.
So,
you
know, do you think, because a lot of the researchers in this state seem to think that they're going from north to south throughout the year, maybe there's like a migration pattern? Do you buy into that theory? And if so, why do you think they're doing that?
Food. different food at different times of year. I do believe they are going from at least somewhere from the Green Swamp over to the Gulf, Tampa Bay, Gulf, that area. Just
Oh, okay,
because,
like heading to the coast.
heading to the coast, right, the West Coast, thank you. Because when you look at reports, remember back in the 70s, they used to have quite a few over in Brooksville and Weeki Wachee.
Right.
The Chattahoochee is close to that. And if you look at the greenways that still exist, and if you time some of the reports, it just seems like you get reports from the Green Swamp. You get reports from Cypress Creek, the area I'm in. You get reports from over in, I took a report of River Creek. I don't believe it got published, but there was another one that was over in Hudson. Plus, I spoke to somebody that had a friend that saw one cross the Keystone, I believe it's Keystone, over in the Lutz area towards Brooker Creek. It's just when you start mapping these out, you can see where it does go to the coast. And then the older reports where they used to cut through Brooksville, I'm guessing they cut through Brooksville and headed back towards the Green Swamp again. But then you had all the development come in, Spring Hill, Hernando County, I-75, cutting the state in half. I got a feeling they continue up further north towards either if they go past the Chattahoochee, King Bay, I believe it is, Crystal River. From there, they can either head back to the east, Lake Panisofsky, Chain of Lakes, Lake Harris Chain of Lakes, and head back over to Ocala, the Green Swamp again, or they can continue north up into your neck of the woods, the Apalachicola, all along the coast up there. They've.
Well, see, we kind of have the same thing, like with the Chattahoochee River. You know what I mean? It turns into the Apalachicola River right there at Lake Seminole, and it's like your sightings go all the way down to the coast, and they come, all the way up into Georgia, So I wonder if sometimes if we're messing with the same species as, in the southern parts of the state. Because especially like around the Apalachicola area, it's a different terrain, a different ecosystem. So I wonder if sometimes if that's not what we're messing with, maybe something, like a difference between a cougar and a panther, basically the same thing, but like an offshoot because of the harshness of the environment.
Well, and there's also what they grew up with. If you're used to looking for food, mussels, birds, things like that, but then there's other ones that grow up. I mean, I know this is stretching a little bit, but they're more used to the forest where they're eating pig, deer, things like that. Maybe they have a preference.
Well, Scott Marlowe, I spoke with him, and he suggested that because of the swampy areas, they have webbed feet. I myself have never found anything to back that theory up, but it's just it varies so much, like everybody's opinions, and it's fine. It's interesting. Nobody knows for sure what it actually is.
But if they had webbed feet, wouldn't that show on the tracks?
You would think, unless most of the tracks were found in her fake.
Webbed feet, wouldn't they have webbed hands?
Maybe. I don't know. Maybe they got gills.
Maybe that's why.
I'm just saying that because that's one piece of hard evidence, or one of the few pieces of hard evidence we have, are the tracks.
Right.
And I don't know of anybody who has ever had any sign of webbing. We've got the tracks where you can see the ridges, the dermal ridges and such. So you would think we would have tracks that would show webbing or something like webbing.
Yeah, I think he was referring to a certain set of tracks from wherever it is he lives. He lives somewhere, Lake County or something like that.
Egg Stump or something like that?
Yeah, but anyways, he was saying because of the swampy environment, they had evolved, and I know Dave Shealy's tracks are webbed. The toes are webbed on them. So who knows? I like talking theory on these things, because Yeah, maybe they're right. Maybe they're finding alligator tracks. Who knows?
I don't know about that. I just know that, the tracks you've casted some tracks. My sister casted a track, and there's no indication of webbing, and hers was back in the swamp.
Right. I don't know anymore. Like, I find tracks, and it's so, because some people will look at them like the experts, and they'll be like, oh, those are amazing. And then other experts look at them and be like, oh, those are fake. And here's why. And it's like, well, I mean, I'm going to cast it. Unfortunately, I can't tell if they're, that's what they actually are, because I didn't see the animal leave it. And that's going to do it for this week's episode, people. Me and Miss Marian Gant continue to talk for quite some time. So we're going to split this one into 2 parts. But once again, thanks to everyone for listening to us. Make sure to subscribe on the YouTube channel. Check us out online, theskunkapefiles.com. And look us up on Facebook, the Skunk Ape Files Podcast. Till next week, I'm Stacy Brown. I will see you then.